As you heard Adam Schefter there from our show yesterday, go back on the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and listen to all 4 hours of Unsportsmanlike here on ESPN Radio, ESPNU, presented by Progressive Insurance. So we know by now the Dallas Cowboys and Mike McCarthy have gone their separate ways. Micah Parsons, their stud linebacker, likely future Hall of Fame linebacker. He's amazing at what he does for a living on the football field. Has his podcast, the Edge Podcast, courtesy of Bleacher Report, and had this to say about the state of his organization right now.
Losing a great coach like Mike hurts, but it's going to be very interesting offseasons due to the free agents, the coaching. It's going to be a complete reset. So it's going to be a very interesting and challenging offseason. But listen, I already know I trust my owner. I trust our GM. I trust Will McClay that we're going to make the right decisions. We're going to make the right decision when it comes to coaching. We don't know who's getting what. It's been a lot of speculations. Former players mentioned like prime time, Witten. But at the end of the day, speculation. We're going to wait to see who gets hired, who's going to be our DC, our OC, because it's going to be a complete reset.
A complete reset, but he trusts Jerry Jones, which is interesting considering he waited too long to re-sign Dak because he hurt this year's team. He likely waited too long on the decision with Mike McCarthy because he missed the opportunity to speak to people like Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson of the Lions and others. If it's Kellen Moore from the beginning, maybe he doesn't have to speak to them. But I can't help but think about all the moves the Cowboys made, and what if they did the opposite? What if they just said, you know what? We're going to let Dak play the season out. We're going to let CD play the season out. We're going to let McCarthy's play the season out, which they did. I can't help, Smalls, but to relitigate all of these Cowboys decisions because it ends up nowhere right now.
And if we're going through that exercise and relitigating everything that the Dallas Cowboys did to get to this point, then why should we buy into what Micah Parsons is saying, that we believe that they're going to make the right decisions? This is an organization that says one thing and then their actions say another thing. When they say, oh, Mike McCarthy is a great coach, but then you make him a lame duck heading into this season. Mm-hmm. When you talk about how great Dak is and how much he's the future of your organization, but then you wait until hours before the regular season to sign him, therefore putting your team at a disadvantage. You say you're all in, but you don't even give Derrick Henry a call in the offseason. You say he's too expensive. How do you know what the price tag is? That certainly could have helped your football team. Look at what he's doing for Baltimore this year. Ultimately, I don't trust the Dallas Cowboys to make the right move. They've done a lot of good things from a personnel standpoint over the years. They certainly do know how to scout and bring in talent. But when it comes to the holistics of the Dallas Cowboys, putting the puzzle together in the right way, empowering the right people, caring about the right things, I can't say that I trust them to get out of their own way.
Yeah, I mean, the owner has shown you throughout the years that there are going to be two things that he puts above all else. It's going to be making sure that he gets full credit for anything that happens with his team. And then it's also going to be doing what's in the best interest of branding and entertainment. And those things undermine the potential of the players that he has in that locker room and what his head coaches do in terms of being able to establish a culture that allows you to have success, be at your best when your best is required. So that's why you don't trust the Dallas Cowboys, because Jerry Jones has shown you that he's all about stirring the pot. He's all about making sure that the attention is on him. He's all about making sure that he gets full credit for whatever happens instead of worrying about doing whatever it takes in order for this team to compete for championships. There is a difference. And so it makes it tough to try to project the Dallas Cowboys being able to accomplish anything of note just because we've seen how Jerry Jones moves, and it's counter to what you should be doing in order to try to win.
100% agree. You said very early on, CC, last year, rebuilds, not championship for the Cowboys. Like, yes, they're closer to the rebuild. Would you feel better about the Dallas Cowboys right this second if Dak Prescott was a pending free agent, CeeDee Lamb did not have a contract, not that you don't want him to get paid, but that he does not have a contract, thus a trade for picks, and Micah, while he's contract eligible, would probably be on the trade for picks while hiring a new coach? Would you feel better if the Dallas Cowboys did everything the opposite way right now?
Yeah, because you have maximum flexibility when it comes to how you're building your football team, and you empower your head coach to be able to establish his vision for what the program should be. So you're giving the head coach a lot more power if you have a clean slate. But saddling him with a quarterback that's making $60 million, saddling with a wide receiver that's getting 34, Micah Parsons is going to be somewhere in the mid-30s. that puts a lot of constraints in terms of what you can do and the players that you can acquire and the things that you can invest in. So, yeah, I would feel better about the Cowboys if they didn't do those deals last offseason. But now that that's done, I think they're locked in. And essentially what you're going to have is a roster that's top-heavy and does not have the requisite depth that it takes in order to be able to compete throughout the course of the season and into the playoffs.
So we're sitting here with the first two teams we've talked about today, the Steelers and the Cowboys, the two teams that have been in the news over the last 24 hours, right? Tomlin says, basically, don't trade for me. I'm not going anywhere, right? And then Micah Parsons says, I believe in Jerry Jones and what we're going to do from here, which we're all saying, why exactly do you feel that way? Basically, what we have just said over the first 25 minutes of our show is if you're a Steelers fan or a Cowboys fan, or if you're a fan of the NFL, which I'm going to guess you are if you're watching and listening to our show, expect the Steelers and Cowboys to be the exact same thing next year as they were their last healthy year. I don't think the Cowboys are going to be the same thing as this year, but the year before, right? They could be a 10 or 11 win team, not win a playoff game, maybe 12 win team if they get lucky, who knows, and just still be the same thing. Like, they're not going to compete with the Chiefs. They're not going to compete with the Ravens. They're not going to compete with the Eagles or the Packers or the Lions or the Vikings moving forward. Maybe not the Vikings, but you
The
get what I'm
Dallas
saying.
Cowboys are going to be the third best team in their division next year.
Right.
I thought the same thing. The Commanders and the Eagles are going to be much better than them next year.
So then, again,
Tell me, outside of the Chicago Bears, what's the NFC North team the Cowboys are going to be better than?
and I'm not sure they're going to be better than the Bears. Let's see what if Mike McCarthy goes to the Bears. I'll take them.
But I guess that's my point, though.
Yeah.
Like, we're starting to look at all of these NFC teams, and we're running out of playoff spots. Ain't but 7 teams that get into the tournament out of that conference.
Which is why I would have had more respect for the Cowboys' decision-making if instead of, as you mentioned, Smalls, on the first day of the season, all of a sudden, Shefty pops up with the reporting of Dak signed. I would have had more respect for them if they said, you know what? None of you have exceeded our expectations. We're the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to have all of you on prove-it years.
But it's not about exceeding the expectations. It's about
those aren't the
It's about being relevant.
Right. Exactly
If
right.
I don't have a quarterback, if I don't have Dak Prescott, I'm not relevant.
Well, then they should just sign Deion Sanders right now. Now, I know it's up to him, too, to decide whether or not he wants to leave college in Colorado and what he's built there and what he's building there. But if you want to be relevant, and I don't want to diminish Coach Prime's coaching ability, that's not what I'm getting at all, because he's proven that he can build a program. But if you want to be relevant, Deion Sanders is going to make you relevant every single day.
Relevant. It's the biggest story in sports.
We're going to talk about it all the time.
And it will be the biggest story in sports in perpetuity.
But that goes against your number one point, though. This is, I don't know if you were listening or ranking on this. You said credit and relevancy, marketing, buzz, money. Well, if credit is above relevancy, Deion cannot be the answer to that question.
That's why he won't be hired.
It's why Kellen Moore's name is constantly mentioned, or Jason Witten's name.
I think Jerry can still somehow take credit for Deion because he was already in the family and because he hasn't coached at this level. So he could say, I rolled the dice on him.
He can't take credit for Deion in any way, shape, or form.
He'll try to.
Deion was an all-pro player before he came to the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, I agree.
Deion was prime time. There's nothing professionally that Deion has done where he hasn't been successful at. Jerry can't take credit for it or won't get credit for it because he doesn't have a persona that's bigger than Deion's. Deion will, in effect, overshadow Jerry Jones.
Of course he will.
And I think that's the part where you hesitate when it comes to trying to project Deion as the next Cowboys head coach because Jerry doesn't want anybody to shine on his son.
Well, then that is why I can't go along with what Micah Parsons is selling. How can we trust the Cowboys to make the right decision if what you just said, Cece, is a factor at all? If he's going into this saying, I'm going to hire the right person, but only if they're less famous than me, only if they're less charismatic than me, only if they don't take the shine away from me, then you're not going to hire the right candidate. You're not doing what needs to be done in order for you to get the best possible person at that job if you're putting yourself and your self-interest before the team and the organization.
Let's open up the Dr. Pepper call line at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. What's more important in all of our minds as fans for the Dallas Cowboys, but specifically Jerry Jones? Is it relevancy or credit? If he had to rank one over the other, is it the biggest brand, the star, all that kind of stuff? Because Super Bowl, no, get that out of there. He's already done that three times. We don't think that's the important thing. Is it that he gets credit for what good happens with the Cowboys, or that they are constantly talked about on shows like ours? 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Relevancy or credit? Which one is more important for the Cowboys?